Well, I was really encouraged by my research on foraging the greenbrier from the video a couple weeks ago. So I decided I wanted to do another. In this case, this is autumn olive. It is related to Russian olive, but neither of those are an actual olive. They're young fruit, which is right here, and looks like this. Fruit and leaves. Does sort of resemble an olive when it is young, but it is not in the olive family. You can't get olive oil from it, at least not as far as I know. But it is very common all across the US. It is technically an invasive species, and like many invasive species, it was introduced by the United States government from Asia to control soil erosion. Now, the plant does a fantastic job of doing that. It will pretty much only grow in badly eroded or badly malnourished soils and dry conditions. Now, I'm not sure why with the ground that we have, it's a heavy clay content, so it soaks up water pretty well. We don't have this in many places through our woods, but we do have it along the edges. My guess is that along the edges, since they have constantly been mowed down, maybe were sprayed several years ago. I don't know. We're not exactly sure what the activities were of the previous owners from decades past, but it is a possibility that there are some drier spots that maybe need a little more nutrition. Another reason that these are good for the ecology, even though they are an invasive species, is that they are one of the few non-leguminous nitrogen-fixing plants. Now, what does that mean? A legume is a plant that grows roots that have little nodules in it. So peanuts, for example, are a legume. The peanut is grown underground. Beans are a legume. The beans are grown above ground. So it doesn't really have anything to do with where the edible part of it is. It's the fact that its roots produce little nodules, and usually legumes are nitrogen fixers. Now, what is that? Nitrogen is an essential element. It is found all through our atmosphere. I think our atmosphere is like, I won't even say what percentage it is, I don't remember, but we have a fair amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. We do not consume nitrogen, but plants consume a lot of nitrogen depending on what the plant is. Nitrogen fixing is plants or events like lightning strikes that trap nitrogen from the air and fix it into the ground. You can't just pump nitrogen into the ground. There has to be a chemical reaction that puts the nitrogen into the ground so that then it can be soaked up by the roots at a later period. This is one of the few plants that is not a legume. Its roots do not have little nodules, but it does fix nitrogen. So this plant, just from that part alone, is good for the plants surrounding it. And even if this plant dies, the nitrogen will still be fixed in the soil for plants that come along later. Its roots are a wide network of this big mass of stuff that hangs onto dirt really well, so it is good to prevent soil erosion. So you will see it along, driving along these country highways. You'll see it along road banks where it has been heavily eroded and there is not a whole lot of nutrition in the soil and it drains very quickly. So dry, eroded, malnourished, this is one of the many plants that helps to fix that. Even though it is invasive, it is fantastic for the ecology. Part of the reason that it is invasive is you basically can't kill it. If you do have it in your yard or you're on your property and you decide you do have to kill it, in midsummer, so about now, when all of its leaves are out and its berries are starting to mature but they're not actually fully mature yet, you chop it down to the ground. You do that 2 or 3 years in a row, it will grow back, you cut it down, it'll grow back, you cut it down midsummer. After 2 or 3 years, from the articles that I've looked at, that should kill it. We have no intention of doing this, however, because this tree This is fairly well-established shrub. This can produce up to 200,000 berries, which comes to about 80 pounds of berries. Now the berries are small, like that picture I showed you, they're about that big. But the berries are the edible part. Now we do still have some young ones here that are still hard. The deer came last night and ate all of these. I was hoping to be able to show you an actual picture of these, but you'll just have to do with the, well, here, let me show it again. So that was off the internet, so I can't show you on here, but they are also referred to as autumnberry or silverberry. They are a red coat with kind of a silvery glitter on the outside of them. When they are used in cooking, you can use them to replace cherries, raspberries, or currants. I've seen some amazing recipes for how to use, most of them call them autumn berries. If you look up the plant, it'll be autumn olive. If you look up the berry, it'll be silverberry or autumnberry. I've seen recipes for an autumnberry tart, an autumnberry ice cream pie with like a graham cracker crust and an autumnberry puree filling topped with bourbon spiked mascarpone ice cream. Yeah, they have a unique, sweet, astringent taste to them. They do have a fairly large seed, which you can spit out, preferably not on the ground because then it will grow another plant. And if you're trying not to grow the plant, don't do that. You just compost them, or I don't know. You can eat them. They do contain a high amount of omega-3s, which is an essential fatty acid. So that's good. It's one of the reasons that people will consume olive oil or grapeseed oil or coconut oil. Those all have omega-3s in it, so that's good for you. So you can just crunch the seed. It's not bad. It's just tasteless. So how to identify this? I'm gonna take off. There we go. He's got all of these. It won't hurt him. So these, they run like that. The leaves have kind of a silvery sheen to the underside of them, and they have this vein. They just look kind of, they're definitely unique. They have wavy edges. That's important. Wavy edges and these long lance-like leaves. So that's how you know. Let me throw this down the base. Usually if I pick off a leaf of something, if I can't eat it, I throw it down at the base of the plant so it'll feed the plant as it decays. So this, the roots of this are going to be all the way over there. So this doesn't really grow like a tree, it grows more like a shrub. In fact, it might even be a shrub technically. The wood also has a fairly silvery sheen to it. There are some people who say that the leaves can be brewed as a tea. I'm not sure what the use or the taste is. There are some claims that the berries have a tonic effect on the heart and the cardiovascular system. If you want to process the berries as a pulp, for the pulp and remove the seeds, you can put them in a colander, line the colander with a cheesecloth, and then kind of mash them up. It really isn't that hard. Some people will even use like a, not a cherry pitter, but yeah, you really just mash them up, roll over them, whatever. They freeze really well, so that's a good thing. These on the outside kind of surprised us, not because they were here, but because they matured so quickly. They generally don't ripen until mid-August at the earliest, usually between September and the end of October. But ours, I mean, this is the first week of August. Actually, I'm recording the first day of August, and these have already ripened and been gotten by the deer. We did get some though. They taste really good. We didn't have a chance to cook them, however. There may be some further down in the woods. I know there's some further down in the woods, and the berries may still be green. I'll have to check on that. So we might have some hope for this. So this is autumn olive. If you find it later in the year, it's got these yellow leaves. I'm not sure why it does that. It looks like just every once in a while, yellow leaf there. Oh! It also makes good shelter for birds as well as food for them. It's good shelter for the ground because it doesn't really have a central trunk. It kind of leans over. Its canopy, it effectively has a wider canopy. And part of the reason for that, or the benefits of that rather, is that remember, it grows in dry, malnourished, badly eroded soils. So the wide root spread helps to combat soil erosion. The canopy, being so low to the ground, helps to keep the sun off of it and preserve more moisture in the soil. So that fixes the dry aspect of it. And then the badly malnourished, it will fix nitrogen in the soil, pull up what nutrients there are, put it into its leaves, and then when its leaves die and when some of the branches die and fall off, it will again fall on the ground to feed it. As I have said many times before, Yahweh has designed things very delicately, very specifically, with knowledge of the future in mind, so that when something goes wrong, there is something to fix it until we, as his stewards, can come in and really get to the root of the problem, to where maybe we don't need this guy anymore, maybe we do, maybe we just leave him. I think that's what we'll be doing with these, because they give us good fruit, they give the deer and the birds fruit and shelter, they're good on the edge, so they they serve as an edge plant like I talked about in a previous episode. We think we're going to leave them.